highlighters ready to go. So if you're wondering like why are we skipping a bunch of pages, is because I'm always ambitious when I make my booklets. And if time allows, I go into every single detail, which is not necessarily a requirement, but it helps you understand it better. But this semester is shorter, so I'm just going to go with it. Okay. So here we go. TVM solver. Okay. TVM stands for time, value, money. Okay. This app comes with a TI-84. And what does it do? It essentially replaces the need to use the compound interest formula. Okay. But here's something that you have to use it, right? Um, must be used, must use if there are deposits or payments. If you have a question that says, hey, so-and-so puts $100 a month towards the savings, or has to pay $150 a month to pay off a loan, you have to use TVM. Okay, don't try to use a formula because you're not going to get it right. Okay, you have to use this software, this app to do it. Okay, so maybe I'll say, because yeah, I always just assume, oh yeah, but I've had students try the compound interest formula and it doesn't work when there are regular payments made. Okay, regular payments. Okay, so the first thing, we're just going to do a glance, a quick overview. So we're going to want to go to TVM solver. That is absolutely critical. And how do you get there? You press apps and then finance. So if you want to quickly grab your calculator, you press the apps button right here between math and program. Press apps and finance is at the very top. So apps, enter essentially, and there's your TVM solver. So this is where you're going to go in. TVM solver is going to go in and input all the information you're given. TVM solver. But further down, you're not going to use all of them. Okay. The one you're going to want to refer to from time to time is balance. So I'm going to highlight balance here as well on the notes. And now you got to go further down. So balance is the very last option. Then there's sum of principal and sum of interest. Okay, that's what that's a sigma notation for sum. Like add up all the principal, all the money you've put in, and add up all the interest you've paid or earned. So here's where we're going to input all of the information. But these are functions that allow us to extract additional information based on what's in here. I'll say it one more time. This is where we're going to go in and plug in everything we know. And these are functions that base their information on what's in here. Okay, so you can't use these unless you've gone in here and made some changes to what's in there. Okay, I just want to say this. Balance, what does that do? Okay, balance returns the amount remaining after a certain time. Amount remaining after a certain time. It requires the number of periods based on the n value from the TVM solver. Okay, we use a different color for that. Based on the n value from the TVM. And right now, this might not make sense to you. Just highlight with me, and then later when you review it, after having done the examples, this will make sense to you. So balance 18, let's say, would give the balance in the amount after 18 periods. Okay. I will add a note here. how should I do this? If time is in years, we multiply it by PY. Just write this down for now. I'm just doing this now so that later on when you review this will make sense to you. So if you wanted to know, let's say 18 represents months and you type in balance 18, it's going to tell you how much money you have in your account after 18 months, right? It could be either way, whether you're saving, it's going to go up over time, right? So you're wondering in 18 months, how much money will I have? Or it could be if you're paying off a loan, you might ask like how much will I still owe after 18 months? Like what's the balance owing after 18 months, right? So it goes both ways depending on whether it's an investing or a loan situation, okay? Next, principal and interest. I'll focus on sum of interest for now. Sum of interest, it's the amount, right? The amount of interest earned or paid after a certain time. Again, it requires the number of periods based on n in the TVM solver. This one is a little different. It says interest 1, 18. What does that mean? This is saying this is the 1 is the start. So how much interest did you earn or pay from the start, so which is month number 1, all the way to where should you end? You're like, oh, from first month to month number 18. So that it'll tell you how much interest you've earned after 18 periods. It could be 18 years, 18 months. We will figure that out together after a while, okay? Okay, balance. So those three, balance, principal, and interest, only work for whole quantities. This is very important. Like you can't type in, oh, I wonder after 18.5 months, 18 and a half months, you can't do that. Balance 18.5 doesn't work. Okay, in other words, like if you wrote in a decimal in there, it wouldn't work. Remember, this is still basically based on everything we've done before. Calculating total interest. Okay. Calculating total interest earned. You've got options. Option number 1, there are no additional payments. When there are no additional payments or deposits made, I equals A minus P still applies. It looks a little different. We use the TVM variables. Okay? And I will specify what this means. FV is equal to future value. That's what it means, which is what we refer to as A. And I know you're like, why couldn't we just stick with A? Like, why don't they just make that A? I don't know. But future value and A are the exact same thing. Present value, PV is present value. Which is also known as the principal, right? Like the initial amount you put in. So this is still saying A minus I. Okay, same thing. Option number 2, I will say regular deposits are being made. Very important. And another color. Use this if n is not a whole number. Okay. So what's different between look at this formula right here compared to the one before? What's the only difference is this section right here. Okay. And I'm translating that here. This statement is translated, this formula is translated here. The interest, the total interest you've earned is your future value minus your present value, just like before. But we're going to subtract the number of payments you've made times the payment amount. Okay? So think about it. If you want to know, like, okay, let's say you have $10,000, you put in $5,000 at the very beginning, and you made, 24 payments of $100 over that time frame. You need to subtract that as well because that's your money you've put in, right? You want to take away everything you've put in and come up with the total interest you've earned. Okay. I will make a bracket here. Money you invested. And I know option number 3 doesn't show up here, but I still want you to know that there's always the third option, which is using sum of interest. And then the start, finish. No, end. Let's go start, end. Put that in there, third option. So I'll actually highlight that. See? What's the caveat with this one? You can only use it if n, like if this end date is going to be a whole number. Only works with whole numbers. That's the pink part I'm going to highlight on this one. That's the I would like to suggest that I would not on my study sheet. I wouldn't really worry about this one because if you only have this one under your formulas, if there are no payments being made, you basically just cancel that out and then you're back to this one. Right? So this one works every single time. You just have to remove the payment part. So I would say to find the total interest, right, these two are the ones to consider. Okay. Option 2 and 3 are the only ones I would consider, but nonetheless. Here's another one, calculating total principal earned, principal invested, I should say. So to get the principal, we take our future amount or the accumulated amount minus the interest. But this is the same thing. Principal is equal to future value minus interest. So they're both saying the same thing. Or P equals PV plus the number of payments times the payment itself. Okay. Let me just should I translate this? This means number of payments. This means payment amount. In dollars. So all of these scenarios essentially tell you how much money did you invest. So one way could be just to take This is probably the most common here. How much did you have at the end of the day, and how much interest did you earn? Subtract those. Well, that's how much money you've put in. If you want to know the principle here, you just take your future value, take away the interest. These are exactly the same. This is just using TVM solver terminology. And then the last one, you take the present values. This is how much you would have invested plus any payments you've made. That's another way to know, okay, that's how much money I've put in, right, out of my own money. I'll put this in brackets. Money you put into savings, essentially. Okay, let's keep going. So this is when you look into your TVM solver, this is what you're going to see. Okay. So grab your calculators. You quit this screen and then try this again. Apps, and then go into Finance and go into TVM solver. Okay. And so this screenshot you see here is basically what you see on your calculator. The only one I don't want you to worry about ever is this one down here, end or begin. The province doesn't care. This has to do whether you're making your loan payments at the end of every month or investing, or at the beginning of every month. And it doesn't make a, like, the province doesn't care. So can we all just have it on end? Let's, like, if yours is set to beginning, you just go and make sure it's end. That way your answers are going to be exactly like mine. But the province tells us that if you had it set to beginning, it'll be slightly different. We don't care. So let's everybody send it to set it to end, and then we're good to go. What does n represent? Total number of compounding periods. Okay. So n is the total number of compounding periods or deposits. Okay. So what you need to make sure you highlight on this one is, if time is in years, we multiply it by py. Highlight that, please. Make sure you highlight that part. I is just interest rate as a percent, so we don't turn it into a decimal. Okay. Don't convert to decimal. The calculator does that for you. PV is your present value, right? If there's no initial deposit, PV is equal to 0. That's probably worth highlighting. Okay. If they say you don't put like a big sum in at the beginning, it's 0. PV. PMT, right? The value of regular deposits or payments. What does it say there at the end? No payment. Set it to 0. Doesn't mention you're making regular payments. Set it to 0. FV, right? Future value at the end of the investment loan, like the amount you have at the end. For loans, you set future value to 0 because you don't want to owe them anything at the end of the term. Okay. PY is number of payments per year. Watch this. No deposits or payments, question mark. We set PY equal to CY. What in the world is CY, Mr. Dixon? There we go. CY stands for compounding periods per year. Okay. That's important, compounding periods per year. If there are no deposits or payments, these two will be set to be the same. So if compounding is 12 and there are no regular payments, then this is 12 and 12. Okay. And we always set it to end. What it says here is important. To solve, put the blinker on the unknown. then alpha enter is what you need to do next to solve for any one of these. Okay. I will just keep in mind here, future value is known to us as A, and present value is what we know as P. Okay. And I is what we know as R, lowercase r, I use that. Like and here it's I, right? The interest in dollars, we're used to thinking of it as in that terms, but no, this is the interest rate that it's actually asking us for. And is there something else I want to say? Is this hole punched on yours? This part right here where my pencil is? Because my original had it hole punched. I tried to move it down a row, so you should be fine. Okay, so this is something we're gonna have to practice a lot. How to use this thing to help us out. Okay. One more thing before we start using it. Signs indicate cash flow. Direction. Signs indicate the direction of the cash. Right? Which way is the cash going? PV, PMT, and future value. So the principal, the present value, the payment, and the future value, those are all dollar amounts, by the way. If you wanna, if you're like, why those three? I'm gonna go up here and just say, right, this is a dollar amount, this is a dollar amount, and this is a dollar amount. Those three are the only ones with a dollar amount. Okay, so these three will have a sign attached to them. And most of the time it's positive, by the way, but not always. Okay. They will have either a plus or a minus sign. This is what I need you to remember. The sign is centered around you, around the you. I know it sounds weird, but it all has to do with you. Okay. So if this is you, okay, if you're making deposits, right, you're making deposits, purchasing an investment, or you're making payments for a loan, okay, then the money is flowing away from you, right? It's going away. I'll say money away from you. That's why that would be a negative. Okay. On the other hand, if you're making a withdrawal, like let's say you have savings in the bank and you're like, hey, I want my money back, right? You're taking it back. The money's coming to you, so it'll be positive. If you're receiving a loan to buy that car you want, guess what? The bank is giving you the money to go buy what you really want, right? So the money's coming to you. So keep that in mind. So money coming to you. So think about, where's the money going? Is it going away from you, or are you getting it from the bank? But I would say center it on you. Just be selfish on this one. Right? All about me, and then you'll get that part right. Okay, let's keep going. 36. Let's put it to the test here. Let's see if we can start using it and it slowly start making a bit more sense. Because it's going to take a while. It's going to take a couple of days for you to wrap your head around it. So just so you know, this one, an example without regular payments or deposits here. Right off the bat, I'm telling you that's the difference between this example and the one we're doing after. So it says you invest $3,000 in a 5-year GIC, and GIC shouldn't scare you. It's just like a savings account, but you lock it in with a rate of 4.17% compounded quarterly. This is what I want you to remember. This is N. If it's compounded quarterly, it means 4 times a year, correct? Which for us right now is CY. Compounding periods is our CY. I like to start with that because that's usually what is given to you for sure. So I'm going to go to CY and go and make that a 4. I actually tend to start at the bottom and move up. I don't know why, but for me that works the best. Okay. PY. Let's enter it all manually, and then we'll go into our calculator. PY. What will PY be set to? It's payments per year. That's what it stands for. And if you look back, go back in your notes, go under PY, and it says if there are no deposits or payment, then PY is the same as CY. So we're going to say 4 equals to CY because no payments, deposits. So I make these two equal to each other. There we go. Calculate the value of the investment at maturity. So future value is actually what they ask you for here. Calculate the value. So the value of the investment at maturity is at the end. They're saying, hey, what's the future value of this thing? Or what's my future accumulated amount? It means the same thing. Okay, so I go to FV right here and I put a dot. That's what I do. I indicate that that's what I'm going to solve for. Are there any payments being made here? Go to PMT. What does it say? If there are no payments, this is set to 0. No payments. Deposits. Okay. What's the present value? Well, you invest $3,000, correct? Where's the money going? From you to the bank, right? So it would be minus 3,000. Money leaves you. Okay, so that's why it's negative. What's the interest rate? That's an easy, usually that's an easy one. Sometimes they ask for it, but I actually type in 4.17. And here's N. You gotta watch out. N says total number of compounding periods. So and the way you would do that here is your time is in years. So you go 5 years and you multiply that by whatever PY is. That's why I start from the bottom usually, because I will already have figured out PY. PY is 4. So it's 5 times 4. It's in total would be 20 compounding periods. So it's years times PY. That's what I do here to get this right. And think about it. Remember the compound interest formula? This would have been your exponent where you go time times the compounding period. So there are 20 compounding periods in those 5 years. Interest is calculated 20 times over 5 years. That's why this has to be 20. Okay? So grab your calculator. I'm going to quit this whole thing and go right from the beginning. Apps, finance, TVM solver. And I'm going to just type in. You can go 5 times 4 if you want to get the 20. 4.17. PV is negative, so you got to use the negative, not the minus. It's going to complain. PMT is 0. Future value, that's what I'm going to solve for, correct? You know what I do? I don't like that big number there, so I'm going to turn it 0 for now. Then and this is another thing I need to warn you about. I don't know if you've noticed it already. If I go 4 there and I press enter, see how it does that? it's awesome in this case, but sometimes it's actually not good because they might not be the same. It could be that they're not the same. So all you do is, right, you change CY and then go back up and then it's fine. But in this case, they're both 4, so it worked great. Now you go to future value, you have the blinker right by future value, and we're going to press alpha. See, a little A comes up there, and then enter. Alpha, enter, because there's the solve. And on top of enter, there's solve there, so you're basically solving. So there you go. Write this number down. 3691.50. And I'm going to circle that to make sure, because this for the province would be acceptable. You're saying clearly with a dollar sign and everything, this is my final answer. So for the province, you're going to actually have to copy these values down. That's going to be your work shown to us. Okay? So there we go. The investment will be worth $3,691.50 after 5 years in this case. You can say at maturity. And at GIC, you cannot take out the money until the 5 years are over. Like if you do lock in for 5 years, GICs, you lock them in, you have to keep it in there for 5 years, okay, to get your money, to get all the interest that they promised you. Calculate how much interest you earned. Can you use 2 methods? And the answer is yes. Okay, so method 1, I'm going to use one of the formulas I gave you. Interest is equal to present value. No, sorry. Future value minus present value minus n times payment. This is the formula that I would like you to have, okay? There are no payments, correct? So I can actually get rid of this. No payments. So it's really just future value, which is 3691.50, minus the present value, which was the 3,000. And so it's really 691.50. Bingo. Method 2, I'm going to use the sum of interest, start, end. Can I use sum of interest? The answer is yes. Look at what n is. N is a whole number, right? It's 20. Sometimes we're going to calculate n, it's going to be like 20.056, like it's just going to have a decimal attached to it. You cannot use this when it's a decimal, okay? So here's what you would do. If you want the entire, the interest earned over the entire maturity 5 years, you would go 1, comma, what would go in here if you could guess? You go all the way up to 20, correct? So you would just put 20 in there. It's as simple as that. It's from 1 to 20. From the very beginning to the last compounding period, which is 20. And we're going to go find out what that is. Hopefully it's 691.50, correct? Or else we're in trouble. Grab your calculator. This is where you have to be careful. Don't change any of these values because that's going to affect it. You leave this, you escape it, so you go second quit. You got to go back to apps, finance, don't go into TVM solver, but you're going to go to sum of interest, this one right here. You select it, and then you just go 1, comma, in this case 20, and there it is. Sometimes this is off by just a little bit. But both of these methods are valid methods of figuring it out. Note n is a whole number. Okay, that's why this worked. It won't always be. Method 1, method 2. You would like to know how much interest will be earned 3 years into the investment. 3 years into the investment. Determine this. Best to use as interest is calculated on a portion of the investment. Okay, you're not doing the entire, you're just figuring out, hey, like, what about the first 3 years? How much interest will I have earned in the first 3 years? So I will say this. You start at 1, but what would you put here? And the answer is you go 3 years and you multiply this by PY. PY is 4. And that's 12. So if you're interested in the first 3 years, you would go from the first period to the 12th period. I'm going to put PY on top of this. PY is what we're going to use every time we want to fill this in if we don't want the entire investment period. Because if you went 1 to 3, you're not doing the first 3 years, right? It's just the first 3 periods that were calculated. So I go copy paste. I go sum of interest, and I change that to 12. So you will have earned $397.58. $397.58. Okay. How much will be in the account after 4 years? Okay. How much will be in the account after 4 years? Actually, you've got options here too. Use balance, okay, and I'll go years times PY to figure that out. Because it's not the entire 5 years, it's just after 4 years. So we go balance, we go 4 times PY, which is 4. That is balance after 16 cycles or periods. And here we go. Grab your calculator. We're going to go to apps, finance, not TVM solver. We're going to go to balance. Like, how much do you have? We're going to go balance, and then we're going to type in 16. Close the bracket. And I know it's going to be weird. It's going to be negative. And why is that? Because this money isn't with you, it's in the bank, correct? Like, you have that much in the bank, so technically it's not with you, it's with them. So just say, don't get worried about the negative. It's okay, right? Will be in the GIC after 4 years. So if you're wondering, I wonder how much money I will have after 4 years, that is the money. Maybe I should have done some like millions of dollars, so it would have been a bit more like, whoa, that's a lot of money, right? But yeah. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So right now I don't want to do too many things, but no, that's fine. You can go back to the TDM solver for sure. Let's try another one here. How much interest would be lost if you got a 3% interest rate instead? So instead of the 4.17, we got a 3%. How would you do that? Well, everything else stays the same. We're going to figure out the future value. There is no payment. You're still putting in 3,000. The interest rate is now 3%. This is still going to be 20. Okay. But put the dot next to future value. We're going to have to recalculate, like how much do we have now? Sorry, the dot is kind of hard to see, but we're going to circle that. So you got to go apps, finance, TVM solver. And you're like, Mr. Eason, why couldn't I use one of those functions, sum of interest? Because we need to recalculate because one of these has changed, guys. One of these inputs has changed. So I got to go to interest, change that to 3. And then all I'm going to do is go to future value and solve it one more time. So I go alpha, enter, and I will copy that down for now. So I'll put that number in here. 3483.55. Oh, the bell's about to go here. So circle, that's not my final answer, but hold on, we're not quite done yet. Here you would go sum of interest, that's what I would do, 1 to 20. Oh man, okay, it is what it is. This is 483.55. So this is what I'm gonna say. No homework for tomorrow.